Hello and welcome back to Big Nostalgia, where we take a look at the games from our childhood, how they were developed, how they were designed. Do they hold up now? What sort of quirks and glitches are there in them? That's everything we explore. I am haddowinc.
And I am VicStar.
You can tell from my very smooth introduction there that this is a brand new season of Big Nostalgia. So 10 more episodes where we're going to be looking at 10 more Nintendo 64 games. Because that's when we grew up.
Yeah, and then Nintendo 64 was such a big impact of our lives when we were younger. I mean, it was our own console. We have so many fond memories of so many of the games. But like season 1, we do like to do a nice diversity. Not just the popular games. We like to explore all sorts of games that are on the N64 console.
But also in the interest of mixing it up, we are doing a popular game this time. So, this seems like the kind of game you'd start a series called Big Nostalgia that talks about N64 games with. But you know what? We're going against convention. It's the start of our second season. We are talking about Super Mario 64.
Oh, yes.
So, this game was a launch title for the Nintendo 64, launching in 1996 in Japan and North America, and launching on the 1st of March 1997 in Europe. Basically, it launched when the console launched. So, we go through, just for people who haven't listened to the show before, we cover games in kind of 5 sections. So we've got plot and like the background of the game. We've got the characters who appear in the game. We have the design, kind of like the audio design, the visual design. So what's the soundtrack like? We've got the quirks, which is where kind of interesting stuff from development, glitches,
cheats,
interviews, cheats, all that stuff kind of falls. And then we end with legacy, which is kind of our opinion of the game. How well did it sell? What happened next? And we kind of work through them in that order. The thing about Mario 64 is the plot, even in 1996, was pretty well established.
Plumber meets girl. Plumber wants to go and have cake. Plumber goes to castle, and big turtley Bowsery character takes over. You know, standard sort of date.
It's just an average day in the life of Super Mario. Super is actually his first name.
Obviously.
They just don't tell you that.
Yeah, that's one of Nintendo's secrets. Shh.
And to be honest, that's mostly the plot. So some background on the game, because we cover a bit of that here, is that this, obviously, like I've said, is a launch title for the N64. And actually developing this game, as with many first-party launch titles, is where they developed the actual the system and the controller as well. So the design of the N64 controller, the weird three-pronged thing, comes mostly from developing Mario 64. I'm guessing that's why the D-pad does not do anything in this game.
It really doesn't, does it?
It's a very interesting controller because, apart from like a handful of games I can think of, you basically only ever use 2/3 of it. But it's nice and symmetrical.
And it's a very iconic look. If you had a bunch of controllers in front of me, I would be able to identify the Nintendo 64 one.
Say all you want about Nintendo, they always mix up their controller design each time. So anyway, this game was developed by series creator Shigeru Miyamoto, and it's their first kind of exploration into 3D. We'll go into some of their considerations when we talk about kind of the audio and visual design, but you can tell it's one of the first 3D games. And actually, the 3D analog stick, the bit in the middle of the controller, was a reasonably how new do we say it is? Because if you go back to, say, the Atari games, the Atari consoles where it is a stick and buttons, you could argue that that's kind of like a very early kind of analog stick. It just wasn't used for 3D games.
But as you said, the Nintendo 64 was bringing a lot more 3D sort of concepts into it. So they basically took that design and put it for their own uses. one of the games we actually talk about in the first season is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and of course that was such a groundbreaking game for the 3D platform as well. They actually used quite a lot of technology that they started in this game, Super Mario, to then use in the Zelda game, although of course the original concept was to have a hub world like Super Mario, which I'm very glad they didn't end up doing. But so this game is become iconic for starting up certain styles of the 3D games that developed into the games we know today.
Yeah, you put it quite right there, because obviously Zelda 64, Ocarina of Time as it was released, was made using a very heavily altered version of the Mario 64 engine, so this is where they designed a lot of their tools, as it were. And actually people were brought in, I think this is going back to one of our other first season episodes on Mario Kart, people were brought in from other projects to make sure Mario 64 was released on time. So, moving on to the... It's always fun when we do a game like Mario or Zelda, because plot and then characters next to each other feels like we're just telling people what they already know. But let's do characters.
Yeah, if you like Nintendo, you know what we're talking about, but we do have to cover it.
The lead is a little-known character called Mario.
What?
There is...
That's
and he
a
is
plot
followed through
twist
his
right
adventure...
there. Sorry.
And he is followed through his adventure by a Lakitu holding a camera, which, to be honest, when you think about it, is quite a clever framing device. If for someone who's never played a 3D game before, to be like, oh no, it's just... And it gets you to think about where the camera is and where you can't move the camera through things. If you say, well, it's a little man with an actual video camera and a cloud.
And is that where they got the design, of course, for the Mario Kart? Is that where they got the design for that character, who, of course, saves you from falling off?
I don't think so, because obviously this game was preceded by Super Mario Kart, which I think he appears with his fishing rod to pull you out of things. So I think it's possibly Super Mario Kart influenced this game.
Oh, well, it was used well, I think. Even though, of course, you only see him at the very beginning, don't you?
Yeah, and it almost follows on a little bit from Super Mario Bros. 3, because obviously that's put in the context of a stage play, and then this is almost put into the context of a TV show or a movie. And I've never actually thought about that like that before, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense when you kind of work it through. Or maybe not. Who knows?
Well, you walk in, you're Mario and you're being followed by this guy with the camera, and you walk in the front door into a castle that has no furniture, no bedroom, no kitchen, it has a courtyard. It has nothing like that apart from giant pictures.
I mean, if you think about it, nowadays, if you walked into like this massive building with like no furniture out, with a cameraman following you, you'd think you're about to get pranked.
Yeah, with these giant pictures everywhere. And they're not just like, hanging on the wall. Or some of them are smaller, but the first ones, definitely on the first sort of levels, they're just, the wall is a painting. And you're just like, yeah, I'm going to take this as it is. Why not?
So we've told this lady's boyfriend that she's been inviting him round for cake. Now we're telling him she's been kidnapped. Look, we're convincing him that the painting is a warp. Slap. You just got pranked!
Although you did say it wrong. She's invited him round for cake. Wink wink, nudge nudge, cake.
Anyway. To try and routinely bring us back on track, this is the first... obviously Princess Toadstool is the aforementioned Mario's love interest in this game. This is the first time she's been called Peach in a Super Mario game.
Really? This is when she got her name?
Yeah, because before she was just Princess Toadstool. And to be fair, Peach is just a better name, really.
It is, but I wonder how they came to that. If they wanted something just to rhyme with, like, Princess Peach, to have a nice, like...
alliteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, because it's technically, her name is Peach Toadstool. You'd think they'd go down the Toadstool route.
Yeah, but... yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, it works.
It works.
Yeah.
So then the other characters in this game, obviously you've got Bowser, who is the big bad, back from Super Mario World.
Who just has this big old obsession with Peach and just can't let it go, really, can he?
No, he can't take no from an answer, which is it's stunting his emotional growth, really. It's very sad to see. And he's got with him is, to be honest, most of the rest of the characters are either enemies or they're bosses. So I've listed a few. Well, actually, I don't know when I wrote these notes, but the bosses, the characters I've listed after Bowser is King Bob-omb, Womp, King Boo, and then I've literally written Weird Hand with Eyes.
Weird
which
Hand
is one of
with
the bosses.
eyes.
And he gets listed in my notes before Yoshi. So, that's my memorable characters. I think it's because I think every N64 game, or a lot of Nintendo games have to have a creepy hand.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously in The Legend of Zelda, the whole Smash Brothers, the end boss was a hand. They seem to have a little bit of an obsession there. But I didn't realise how much of the baddies were royalty.
Yeah, it's a lot of kings. I think it might even be King Womp as well.
But the thing
Basically,
is,
Mario shows up to their kingdom
as a plumber,
beats them up. Yeah.
Basically, he's not even a knight or anything. He's this random plumber. He comes over to these kingdoms and like kicks bum.
I think I should have just said that under the plot section, really.
Yeah, it's all good.
So, continuing on with kind of like some of the design, audio, visual kind of considerations. Like we said, it's the first 3D Mario game, one of the first 3D games ever. The first use of an analog stick. And this is something that I didn't know. Something very interesting I found out during my research is that apparently Super Mario 64 is only actually a 32-bit game.
Okay.
So the N64 has two 32-bit processors. I said that weird. Only has two 32-bit processors. But the game only uses one of them, so only is a 32-bit game because code runs faster and there's no load times. And because it's such an early game, early games on most systems don't really know how to make the most of the power they've got.
Oh, okay.
So really it should have been called Super Mario 32, but I think that would have ruined the marketing.
Yeah, it wouldn't have had such a good ring to it.
But this game was it was a concept during the Super Nintendo days, because right after kind of the success of graphical design, I mean, we may not see it that way nowadays, but at the time it was just like this massive thing. But the original Star Fox, using the Super FX chip in order to make 3D rendered graphics on the Super Nintendo, Mario 64 was then kind of visualized using that kind of graphics, kind of similar to our episode last season. We're going to keep doing this. Our episode last season on banjo-kazooie, which obviously started life on the Super Nintendo as well.
It's hard not to reference back some of the information that we've already talked about because, of course, having season 1, and all of these are so closely linked because, of course, the way they've all been brought out on the N64.
Talking about the kind of the processors for the N64, which character got its name from the processor?
Main or side?
It's a side character.
Oh,
very side character. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know.
I'm gonna guess like Cooper or something, so I'm guessing that's wrong.
It's Mips the rabbit.
I would not have got that, and that rabbit was so annoying to catch. Oh, I forgot about that rabbit.
So apparently that was a test character they made for just testing, obviously, the graphics, the rooms, all the code and everything. But the development team liked it so much it made its way into the final game, and it's how you get 2 of the stars.
Is that the first game that had that rabbit concept? It would have been, wouldn't it? Because it was in the test.
So, I mean, I'm sure other games had rabbits in them.
It's just that chasing rabbits and trying to collect them has become more of
Right.
a Nintendo, definitely a Mario sort of gaming device. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got
they
it in the
kind of,
Galaxy, you've got it in the some of the Super Mario just generals, and yeah.
In the Mario 64 remake they made for the DS, they just go a bit mad and there's like 20 of them.
That's funny.
Because it's how you unlock the mini games for playing outside of the main game.
No, that's really funny.
And also, we're just going for a bit of whilst we're doing like character trivia, they saved some space, and this one I think is reasonably commonly known, is that the voice of a Boo enemy is just Bowser's voice but sped up.
Yeah, I heard that.
So, and then kind of talking about more of the design stuff, there were 32 levels originally planned for the game, but it was only 15 in the end that made it in. Some concept art they released, I think it was Mario's 25th anniversary. They did like they released the original Super Mario All-Stars for the Wii and just gave a very small like art book with it. But it showed a few of these pieces of concept art, and one of them is like Mario jumping off like a piano.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's going to be like a more musical instrument focused
I
level.
wonder if that's some of the designs that they used in later Mario games, and if some of the designs were hindered by the N64 capacity.
Vicky, you're so good at this show. That's some of the stuff we've got coming up in Quirks.
Sorry, I don't mean to be
But what I
jumping
was going
ahead.
to do first is, since we're talking about the levels, I was going to say, one, how many levels can you name?
Bowser's Castle? I've got
No.
I'm really no. I can't really name any of them. I can't even remember the last time I played this game on a simulator, let alone the actual game. So actually, I was just thinking, it wasn't a rabbit that stole his hat, was it? It was a monkey in one of the levels.
Yeah, so a monkey steals his hat, and then a bird steals his hat.
When did the bird steal his hat?
That's in the desert world.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? He keeps losing that hat. Mario's so clumsy.
Well, the thing is, did you know, this is relevant, it's under the design, is Mario takes more damage when he's not got his hat on.
Yes. Yeah, I used to find that really annoying.
Did you just used to lose his hat a lot?
No, I just remember dying a lot more without his hat. And yes, I blamed it on the hat, even if I didn't know the reason.
So there is 15 levels. The thing is, I've seen quite a few like speedruns of this recently, just because whilst I was... Well, one, I find them quite interesting anyway.
Snowman Land, isn't there? Or Penguinopolis?
No, there's one literally called Snowman's Land.
Woo! I got one.
So there's Bob-omb Battlefield, Womp's Fortress, which is with like the tower.
Yep.
I almost said Freeze Easy Peak, but that's Banjo. Die Docks, Shifting Sand Land, Lethal Lava Land, Hazy Maze Cave, Tick-Tock Clock, Rainbow Ride.
Tick-Tock Clock. Oh, that was a bit of a hard one. I remember that one. That was an interesting maze of a level, really, wasn't it? With all those moving
that one was
platforms.
interesting because like you could slow it down or speed it up depending on when you like entered on the clock.
No, I thought that was a very interesting concept. Wasn't there a ghost house as well that you had to jump into in the garden?
Big Boo's Haunt.
Yes.
And you had to like jump into like a little mini merry-go-round kind of thing.
Which was weird because then you went into a house. But
Yeah.
I did like the concept of it, like jumping into something. Because you had to like hit the giant Boo, didn't you? To get him to drop it or something.
Yeah, you had to find the Boo of it inside and then defeat him and then dive into it. I think that's the majority of the levels. I've got to admit, there's obviously three Bowser levels that are just Bowser in the Fire Sea, Bowser in the Dark World, Bowser at the supermarket.
Bowser in the bath. Rude.
No, that is the final boss of Super Mario Sunshine you're thinking of.
I do get those two games mixed up. I've got to admit though, the first time that you walk down that hallway thinking, this is it. I've got all my stars. I'm about to defeat Bowser. It's all good. And Princess Peach's photos down the end. And then the floor just drops underneath you. There was lots of little bits to this game that are just so memorable.
Yeah.
Like that, wasn't there one picture, or wasn't it like a mirror or something, and you jumped into, and it was literally just coins. It was like a ramp with coins.
I'm trying to think. Well, talking about the mirror, there's a room where you have to look in the mirror, and it's the painting appears in the reflection, but no, actually not on the wall, and you have to jump at that wall.
No, I'm not thinking that one. Oh no, it's a
Which one are you
window.
thinking of?
It was like called Starland or something. It was literally all it was. The whole level was this giant ramp, and you just go down it and collect all these coins.
I mean, there's Princess Secret Slide,
That's
which
the
is
one.
the slide level.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it just there's so many quirks to it. It had a nice balance. It just talking about it just makes me want to play the game again.
Before we move on to quirks, now we've got your brain thinking back to the Mario 64 levels. What would you say is your favourite and which is your least favourite?
So I always really enjoyed the clock one because of the concept of it, and I just loved the way it was designed, because of course it was just the inside of a working clock, but they made it very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, one of my least favourite ones. On the lava level, wasn't there this thing that you could run across lava?
You could get the shell and skate on the lava.
That was it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of my least favourite probably is a ghost or anything to do with water, because I kind of panic when you're in the last bubble and you're like, I need help. There's a ghost.
Yeah,
but that's
so
just
mine's
general
kind of-
Mario games. I don't really do very well underwater.
You can tell me and you must have played this a lot together as kids, because my favourite was going to be mine was Lethal Lava Land, almost purely because you could just go around on the shell. And to be honest, it's with the stuff in the volcano and like the other areas, when you're first getting used to it, it can be quite difficult. Once you get your bearings, it's actually not too bad a level, and I just quite like the music, quite like the design, I like the skating around. And to be honest, there's in terms of least favourite, one of them, it feels like a cop-out to say Rainbow Ride, but that one can be a bit annoying just because it's so big and so difficult. But I think it's not Dire Dire Docks, it's the other water level, the one before the second Bowser stage. That one's annoying when I replay it, and it's for the most arbitrary reason, but it's because it's only got about 105 coins total in the stage.
Oh.
So when you're trying to find the 100 coins, you need to find all of them.
You have to commit. You have to get them all at once.
It's a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that one's called. I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct me. Anyway, so quirks. So let's go on to interviews, glitches, that kind of stuff. So starting with glitches. Are you aware of the what's called the backwards long jump?
I've heard of it, but I don't know how the glitch works into it.
So backwards long jump is quite an interesting thing, because in Mario 64 there is a limiter on how fast you can move forward, but not one on how fast you can move backwards.
Okay.
So if you find a staircase, these common ones are the staircase leading up to the final floor or the staircase leading up to the final Bowser level, you can kind of catch yourself on the stairs and keep on hitting the backwards, doing a long jump, holding back, and you'll just keep on building up momentum and speed without moving, and then when you release it, you'll just go flying backwards, and that's how speedrunners will go through the walls. And that's also because obviously the final Bowser, you can enter the door without enough stars, but you'll get stuck on that endless staircase. But if you backwards long jump, you go fast enough that you just go straight through it and just go straight to the top.
Oh, okay.
So that's quite a famous. That's probably the one that Mario 64 is most known for. There's other lesser known ones, such as there's a glitch called Bomb Clip, which is if you catch a bomb in the frame before it explodes, you'll then be able to clip through walls that way.
Oh.
So
that
for
must
example,
be quite a hard one to do, though.
I've tried it and I've not been able to do it. But I wouldn't take that as a a measure of whether it's hard or not because I'm a bit clumsy. But in the very first level, there's a star behind the wall, and you have to release the chomp usually to get it.
Yes.
You can get a bomb, and then you can clip through there and just get that really quickly.
Fair enough.
So now we're going to go on to kind of like cut content and kind of stuff from interviews. And you were saying how like it's interesting to see what this game may have had that's appeared in future games or kind of stuff like that. I think the biggest one is that there was originally planned co-op.
Really? Okay.
So it was in an interview many years later, but between Satoru Iwata and Miyamoto. But they did an experiment where they had both Luigi and Mario in the game at the same time, and they like moved them apart from each other and moved them back together.
Bet the camera angles would have been like proper rubbish.
Yeah, I think it just kept zooming out.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get it working well enough to have it in the game. But then there's still not to this day been a 3D Mario game with proper. So when I say 3D Mario game, I mean a free roaming 3D Mario game, because obviously you've got Super Mario 3D World, but that's like it's 3D, but you've got a straight line to follow.
Yeah. There's not really been an as you said, exploratory. I mean, you've got lots of co-op games in the Mario series, but actually to just go on an adventure together. I mean, if you're comparing it to a more modern day sort of Super Nintendo game, is Hat in Time, which of course we're big fans of. They've put out a multiplayer mode in that, which we have done on other channels, and playing as second player as I have, the concept is basically it doesn't matter where you are, you're kind of like playing your game, you just happen to be alongside the other person, which makes gameplay very enjoyable for a second character. I mean, the only thing I can remember is the latest one on Mario with a hat.
Oh, Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, and I think I tried to play it, like the 2-player concept of that, and basically I was the hat, and you could throw me, I could float around for a little bit, and then I came back. It was super boring as a second player sort of game aspect. So that's something that hopefully Mario games might explore a little bit down the line, because it has been done.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. It's that because you don't have to have it one way or the other. You don't like, I understand it gets referred to as like the younger sibling mode, and I do understand why you would call it that. Is like if you wanted to play with like a little brother or a little sister, you could have them collect the star bits in Mario Galaxy, or you could have them be the hat. But there could also be a proper co-op mode. There's nothing stopping you now. Just putting it out there. Proper co-op. And it makes me think of the mod that was made for Super Mario 64, which is like the Super Mario, which allows up to like 50 people to play Mario 64 together online.
Oh man, that'd be
and
so intense.
That's just chaos.
Yeah.
But one of the things it did spawn, I think we spoke about this a little bit when A Hat in Time released a similar mode officially, is that it does allow for quite interesting stuff. Like they did like one speedrunner racing like 10 non-speedrunners to see who could complete the game first.
How did it go?
It actually like varied quite a bit, like depending on like the settings they were using. Like the speedrunners sometimes won and they sometimes won. But as the series went on, because they weren't refreshing their non-speedrunners, it started to weigh more to them because they were starting to get too good at the game almost. Because they were doing these races so often. So it's quite interesting actually. But going back to kind of like cut concepts, apparently the game was going to have flagpoles in it at one point. So like Super Mario Bros, and then like they brought back for Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World.
For like the end of the level, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
This wasn't the first Mario that had stars, was it?
This is the first Mario which had stars in as like
rewards
related to game progression. Stars up to this point had been invincibility power-ups.
Oh, okay. So this was the first time that you could actually collect stars.
Yeah, like when you look at it in the context of the older Mario games, this flips the script in quite a few ways, because this obviously has hats instead of the regular power-ups, like the fire flower and things like that just don't appear. And the stars, rather than giving you invincibility, are like your currency for progression, and instead you've got these timed power-up hats. I mean, it all works really well, but that's actually quite a big change from what had been up until that point.
Well, if you think about all the Mario games that have happened since then, and how stars have become such an iconic collectathon for Mario gamers, it's interesting to think that it only started with the Nintendo 64, like properly started. I mean, as you said, before then it was more getting to the flag or collecting coins or however it was before. The only one I can think of that's changed that is the Mario Odyssey, and let's be honest, it didn't change that a lot. All they did was moons instead of stars.
And in one of the kingdoms, I guess spoilers for Mario Odyssey, it is stars. So, actually, I don't know why I didn't put this in the right order in my notes, but I just wanted to read this bit from an interview. So this interview came a bit later, but it was about Mario 64 and about the co-op. But this was during the run-up to the release of Super Mario 3D World. So this is between Yoshizaki Koizumi, who was the director. He's basically been the director of the series since Sunshine, and Satoru Iwata. This is when Iwata did his Iwata Asks series of interviews about new games. So Koizumi says, when we made Super Mario Galaxy, I had regrets about some things. I was able to do those things in Super Mario 3D World. Iwata asks, regrets? Koizumi goes, one goes all the way back to Super Mario 64. When we made the first prototype, Mario and Luigi were on a flat field. Iwata goes, both of them? Koizumi says, yes, we ran it that way, and when we made the landforms, because of hardware limitations, we had a choice between cutting Luigi or making less elaborate landforms. Then, in tears, we had to ask Luigi to leave.
Poor Luigi. Although not poor Luigi, because I don't like him, but you know.
It's just that quote at the end that...
In tears.
That's the whole... Yeah, in tears, we had to ask Luigi to leave. We're sorry, but you're making a scene. Can you please go?
You've been evicted from the big Peach Castle. I think it was the right move for it, though. As we said, Nintendo 64 was a brilliant gaming console when it first came out, and for the time period that it came out as well. But for developers, there were a lot of drawbacks, definitely when you're pushing the next step, which is the 3D platform.
Yeah, and I think when you have that choice, it's either you can do co-op or you can have, like, more elaborate geography. I think you want to show off what 3D can do.
And you want to make a good one-player game instead of a mediocre two-player game. Definitely when you can put into consideration the camera angles and stuff like that as well. Yeah,
so the main shame is that they've not done it properly since, but yeah, I think it was the right call for this game.
And for that platform.
So did you know that during the end credits, if there is a second controller in the controller port, that player 2 can control where the camera is during the end credits?
No.
That was something I only found out. Like, it's weird that...
That's such
the reason
a
I
small,
like doing this show is we're
bit.
discovering so much new stuff about games.
No, it is nice to look into games, definitely some of our favourites from our childhood, and actually see where their thought pattern and where their influences came from. As big fans as we are. Big nerds.
So, and that's just a few kind of unused and like quirks about the game. So, in the snow levels... You know, if you fall from a height in the snow levels, you don't take full damage, but you get stuck in the snow.
Yeah.
There's times when that will happen even when it's the hard ice. So Mario just gets, like, in the ice, but he still doesn't get full damage.
Cool.
Which is quite odd.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few unused animations, but the one that the ones that I've highlighted is that there's one which is, like, Mario doing, like, a flip when he's in free fall. And obviously I've not seen this animation, but it makes me think of how he enters levels in Mario Galaxy more, because obviously in this game he's almost like he's like flipping until he hits the floor, but like falling through the sky and just doing one flip almost, makes it how he like approaches the planets. So I'm not sure if it was similar to that.
Well, that was like a little bit of a like a tap your hat to that mechanism or that, because I've never really thought about the way that he kind of enters, or because you kind of just like, yeah, let's play.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of stuff. Obviously, if I went through everything that was found as like cut content, we'd be here
forever.
Longer. Yeah. Some interesting stuff though is that there was originally going to be keys in Big Boo's Haunt, because there's a development screenshot with a Boo with a key in it.
Oh, okay.
There's graphics of actual Yoshi eggs in the game files, because obviously Yoshi only appears once and he appears right at the end. And one that is a picture I'll have to send you, Vicky, possibly I'll just put it on screen for people now. It's a different facial expression for the big penguin who lost their child, and it has a really sad face.
Like a super sad face.
Yeah,
like someone
it's quite
like kick my dog sort of sad face.
Well, it's kind of missing child kind of sad face.
Oh,
really.
wow.
There's an unused trampoline item, which is an interesting one because a few Mario mods have actually used it.
Okay.
And like Mario will bounce off it and he'll do like a flip off it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I wonder if that's a concept they'll bring into any later games.
Well, they kind of have like, there's like the music note blocks that appeared in the 2D games and appear in a few of the 3D games, which you can like bounce off. And I think Mario 3D World has springs on it.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's quite interesting. So moving on to kind of legacy. So where I was about to say, where are they now? But like, it's a game, it's still there.
Personally, for me, the Super Mario 64 was one of those iconic N64 games. I mean, it's one that, of course, was linked to the console actually coming out into production, so everyone will always link it to the N64. It has an N64 in the title. I mean, even the Ocarina of Time was considering being called Zelda N64 to be similar to the Super Mario 64. So it will always be linked, and it will always be a classic Mario game. I mean, so many other Mario games have given you mods to look like the Mario from this version, or have like levels in it, or castle, or little tip of the hats to this game. It brought it basically, as you said, I didn't realise about the stars. And I didn't realise about Peach's name. It was a starting point for a lot of things that Mario fans just take as, oh, it's a Mario game, it will have that. Well, before this one, it didn't. So it was really kind of the start of a very interesting career of Mario, really. For certain concepts, obviously. It was, of course, going on before then, but this started a lot of stuff.
Yes, I agree with you completely. It kind of was... It not only had to show that Mario could be 3D, it was almost trying to show that games could be 3D, platformers could be 3D. And it's still, as a result, remembered as one of kind of the big moments in gaming history. I think Zelda obviously gets topped on a lot of lists for being like an action-adventure kind of RPG kind of game that is free, like the first 3D one. But Mario 64 set a lot of rules of 3D platforming that a lot of games followed in step with for many years.
And if you consider what we talked about, sorry to do it again, but what we talked about in the Zelda game, this one, as you said, started it. I mean, the Zelda game was a lot more initiative and inventive because it didn't have a hub world like the Super Mario game does. But they only know their limitations and what they could achieve because they had the Super Mario game beforehand that had a hub world and how that worked. Whereas Mario, of course, didn't have that.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, its legacy shows by the pure amount of I was going to say the references in later games, like we've said, but also the amount of attention and love that this game still gets.
Oh,
so
yeah.
at the time, it sold 11.89 million units. It was a sequel was planned for it for the Nintendo 64 DD, the disc drive, but when the disc drive was cancelled, so was the sequel. However, it did get a Nintendo DS remake as a launch title for the Nintendo DS, which I like the game. People don't, and I can see why. Because the Nintendo DS... Because what do you associate... When you think about Mario 64, and you think about controlling Mario 64, what part of the controller do you think of the most?
The arrows.
Like, the analog stick.
Yeah.
And the Nintendo DS just didn't have one.
Oh.
Obviously,
I remember our controllers getting the analog stick. We had to replace them, didn't we? Because some of them were better and some of them were worse. Just because you used it so much that it kind of loosened the part or something. So you.
I'm not sure we ever replaced them. We just started using the ones that were better than the others.
Did we never replace them?
The main reason we still have our N64, but I think one of the main reasons we don't use it that much is because all the controllers are worn out.
Yeah,
Part of me wonders whether you can mod it using a more modern analog stick design, because obviously the designs nowadays, the problem with those ones is that they had such a small ball at the bottom.
Oh yes. Well, if you know anything about this, please comment in the comments below and let us know if you can modify or use more up-to-date controllers.
Yeah, because I still enjoy playing stuff on the original consoles. It's just a bit of a pain.
Oh yeah, sitting there for like 10 to 20 minutes going wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Is it going to work? No. There's something so nostalgic about that.
Yeah, I still do it with discs. It just doesn't have the same feeling though.
So personally, the Mario 64 game is one of my top favourites. Obviously, Banjo-Kazooie, Legend of Zelda, but Mario is such an iconic character for the Nintendo series as a whole. And that game, talking about it today, even though I haven't played it in so long, it just brings back so many fond memories of the monkey, the rabbits, the skating across the lava, actually going inside the boo to try and for that little like merry-go-round or whatever it was, walking down and seeing the floor drop as Bowser's face looms over you again. Ha! You're so much trouble. It's just had so many iconic moments and so much detail was put into it, even with the limitations of the Nintendo 64 compared to consoles today. I'm not surprised it's become such an iconic game, and I would happily play it again today.
You just saying about Bowser just reminds me of the most unfortunate line read of potentially of all time, on par with the Pots and Banjo-Kazooie saying thank you weirdly, was "So long, King Bowser," which came out as sounding to obviously most of us as kids as "So long, Gay Bowser."
And then going, Bowser said gay.
So just because I was talking about obviously the amount of fan love, these are kind of my closing points. One is just a few of the ROM hacks. If you're interested, you can check out. There is Super Mario Multiplayer Online, which was the one I was referencing before, which allows large groups of people to all play Mario 64 together. Some good ones which are like whole new games. You've got Super Mario Star Road, which is very good, and Super Mario Last Impact. Both are created by just individuals in the Mario 64 engine. They work on the Nintendo 64 emulators. And somebody made like Super Mario Odyssey 64, which like only copies I think one of the levels, but you can like take control of like the NPCs and stuff as Mario, which is quite quaint. And because people can't stop playing this game, well, the thing is, you see them all over YouTube. Is like, can you do blank in this video game without blank? So some of the ones I sat down and watched for researching this video for Mario 64 is can you beat Super Mario 64 DS without Mario? The answer is yes. Can you beat Mario 64 without collecting a coin? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And can you beat Mario 64 when everything is a coin? I.e., someone hacked the game to turn every object, so every Goomba, everything floating object, everything becomes a coin.
Oh, my goodness.
And apparently the answer is yes.
Oh, fair enough. What people do.
it's like questions that I never had, but okay. Anyway,
And your own opinions?
I think I agree pretty much with everything you've said. I think it's an icon upon which the whole genre of 3D platforming was made. I think if you put it's definitely not the best 3D platformer.
No.
But we'd be very. It's probably not even the best 3D platformer on the N64.
No.
But the thing is, it laid the groundwork. It did a lot of the heavy lifting. It solved probably a lot of problems in early 3D game design, which made it such a smoother ride probably for the other ones to build upon it. One of my housemates once, I'll end on this anecdote. I've replayed this game many, many times over the years, to the point where one of my housemates came, when I was at uni, came into my room and had a conversation with me. I wasn't even looking at the screen. I was still playing Mario 64, still collecting stars, to the point where he said, your hand looks like a mechanical vice moving like a robot, because I just was so used to playing it. And then I'll mention with this other story is I tried to play it a few weeks ago and I was just terrible. So, swings and roundabouts of how much we play games.
Yeah.
Just to round up, this has been the first episode of the second season of Big Nostalgia. If you enjoyed what we did here today, there are 10 more episodes on 10 different N64 games on our YouTube channel that you can go and watch right now. We also ended that season with a top 10 of the Season 1 games. So this time we're going to be doing the same again. It'll be weekly new videos going across 10 more Nintendo 64 games,
And then
ending
a planned
with a top 10.
20. Well, no, a top 10 at the end, won't it? Out of the Season 2 games.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed, subscribe, leave a comment saying what your memories of the game were, and stick around. We've got a Twitter at Brigst. We've got a Twitter at AbridgedBK. We're on Facebook under Abridged Big Knickers. We try to keep people updated with stuff through those two channels. But we've also got a new show coming out, or it might already be out, I don't know which one's premiering first, called Abridged of the Wild. You can also watch that on Abridged Big Knickers. That is a parody of the 2017 video game, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
But if there's a chance that you haven't ever played Super Mario on the Nintendo 64, hopefully this has given you a good groundwork of what to expect, and please check it out. It is, even though of course it is a reflection of a console done at that time, it is so much fun. You'll have so many fun hours, and it's definitely worth checking out. Replay value 100%.
And you can join us next week where the game will be 1080 snowboarding. So going from Mario to shedding?
yeah, shredding.
Shredding some snow. And on that note, we'll end the episode. I've been haddowinc.
And I've been VicStar. Please join us again next week.
Thank you very much for watching.
Bye. Bien.
Do 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 do.
Bien.
Do 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 do.
Bien.
Do 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 do.
Big nostalgia.
Yeah.